Hello, and welcome to Grant Funder and Awardees, a conversation, one of the sessions during Toward Radical Imagination. My name is Andrea Gavin, and I'm the Director of Engagement and Scholarship at the Atlanta University Center Robert W. Woodruff Library, and I'm serving as moderator for this session. Before I introduce our panelists, I'd like to remind attendees that we'll be following the Digital Library Federation Code of Conduct, which will be placed in the chat. Audience members, if you have questions for our panelists, and I know that you will, please use the Q&A function found at the bottom of the Zoom app. We will turn to our Q&A period at the 40-minute mark of this 50-minute session. And now I will introduce our panel speakers by name, title, and organization, but you can view their full bios by clicking the speakers page in the Zoom events lobby. So please welcome Dr. Rico Chapman. He's the Assistant Dean for the School of Arts and Sciences and Director of the Humanities Ph.D. program at Clark Atlanta University. Renee Johnson-Thornton is the Senior Program Associate in Higher Learning Programs and Associate Director of the Mellon Mays Undergraduate Fellowship at the Mellon Foundation. Allison Levy is Director of Brown University Digital Publications at Brown University Library. And Bria Paige is a doctoral candidate in the Department of English at Rutgers University and also a former Pathways intern at the National Endowment of the Humanities. And she is an HBCU graduate, Spelman College. So we're gonna get started. I'd like to ask Rico and Allison first to just tell us a little bit about your current or most recent grant-funded projects that you're working on, and please do include the funding source along with information about the project.
Okay, I guess I'll go first. Thank you, Andrea, and thank you, team. This is a great opportunity. It feels good to be in conversation. Even though virtually, it feels good to be in conversation about such a great topic. What we have going on here at Clark Atlanta University is a Mellon-funded project to develop our digital humanities infrastructure. It started in 2021, and we conduct workshop series and summer institutes aimed at helping faculty and scholars in graduate school from HBCUs to think deeply about digital humanities and how to build this type of program at their respective institutions. We are in our second year, and we are coming up on our third. It's been a great round of workshops. During the academic year, we concentrate solely on faculty and graduate students in the AUC, the Atlanta University Center. That includes Spelman College, Morehouse College, and of course, Clark Atlanta University, Morehouse School of Medicine. So we seek facilitators of these workshops from Atlanta and the Atlanta metro area during our academic year. In the summer institutes, we tend to branch out a bit, and we offer these workshops to a broader HBCU audience. And last summer, we had HBCU faculty and graduate students from Howard, Jackson State, Claflin, South Carolina State, Texas Southern, just to name a few. Our cohorts tend to be around 15 to 20 participants. And we have trainings in GIS mapping, Tableau, other digital and computational tools, along with thought-provoking conversations around technology, social justice, and equity. So that's what we have going on here at CAU, and that's Mellon funded. And most recently, I serve as a co-PI on a brand new Mellon funded project that's inter-institutional. I'm partnering with Emory University, Georgia Tech, and DataX, that's Brandeis's company, Brandeis. And the title is Atlanta Interdisciplinary AI Network, the Atlanta Interdisciplinary AI Network. It's a cool project. It's funded by Mellon. We seek to foster research that blends humanistic ways of thinking with cutting edge machine learning. to showcase how Atlanta can serve as a model and national hub for the work of AI and how it intersects with ethics and social justice. So these two projects are what we're working on, what we are working on currently. And it's been exciting just collaborating with those in Atlanta working in this field and outside of Atlanta to bring those sources and knowledge here to the AUC. So that's where we are. There are a few other smaller projects that I'd like to talk about later. Thank you, Andrea.
I'll pick up, and I just want to start by saying it's great to be in this conversation with this panel and to be a part of this two-day program. I'm really honored to be with all of you. And so at Brown, we have two, I'll speak about two grant programs underway. The first is the one that got us started, and that is from the Mellon Foundation. So in late 2014, we received our first grant through what is now known as the Public Knowledge Program. And this was, our grant was part of this larger digital monograph initiative. So Brown no longer has a university press, and it was not our intention to resuscitate that press, but rather to support our faculty across the humanities who were interested in pursuing a born digital enhanced interactive publication. And so we offer very robust support for the faculty, and we help develop these projects, and then we place them with a university press. So we've published 3 works so far, and we have 13 in various stages of development. So we also got a second Mellon grant through the same program in 2019. So that funding is going to continue through, I believe, September of 2025. And so the generosity of the Mellon Foundation enabled us to build this infrastructure at Brown, a very new kind of infrastructure, and also to develop this very particular expertise around digital content development. There's also a significant training program that is part of Brown University Digital Publications. We work with undergraduates and graduate students. And thanks to that Mellon funding in 2019, we have a diversity in digital publishing postdoc appointment that's been very successful. Again, you know, Mellon has enabled us to build this expertise, and now one of our priorities is to open this up beyond our own campus, to grow this ecosystem and make sure that it is more inclusive and that it's open to faculty at all institutions. So one step in that direction was the NEH Institute that we were able to offer this last summer. So the second grant, the most recent grant activity is supported by NEH, and that was an institute on advanced topics in the digital humanities. That's the program which is offered through the Office of Digital Humanities. And you all are going to be hearing from some of the cohort members tomorrow, speaking about their experience, but I'll just tell you what the reasoning was for us. Again, we wanted to share what we've learned with faculty from less well-resourced institutions where there may not be Mellon grants, there may not be a Center for Digital Scholarship, but there are faculty, I'm hearing from faculty around the country, in fact, around the world, who are interested in pursuing this kind of presentation of their research. So we had a cohort of 15 scholars. Over half of them from this past summer teach at HBCUs. So that was our objective. And so we were really pleased to see the very, very strong response to the program. It was a 3-week summer program. It was set up as a hybrid national training camp. The first 2 weeks were virtual, and then the third and final week, the cohort came to Brown, to the library. I should say our digital publishing program is based in the library at Brown. And so that's where we workshopped the individual projects, building upon all we had learned from an incredible faculty over the first 2 weeks. And so We've had virtual check-ins since then. It was a very tight cohort, and we've all stayed in touch. I saw one member of the cohort this morning in person. So it was a very enriching, generous and generative program. And we're certainly very pleased with the way that it worked. We want to offer this on a regular basis. And we have reapplied to any age to offer this program again in the summer of 2024. And we would be bringing the original cohort back to campus to serve as peer mentors to the incoming cohort. So we really want to build this activity in many different ways. Certainly open it up, have more faculty having access to these resources, to this expertise, and also again bringing students in and training the next generation to be involved in digital publishing work. So those are the two main grant activities that are currently happening at Brown.
Thank you to both of you. And also, Allison, we can talk a little bit more about it, but I know that Brown University has an affiliation with the HBCU Library Alliance. And so maybe you can share a little bit about that a little bit later. Yes. Renee, we know that you are the Associate Director for the Mellon Mays Undergraduate Fellowship Program. I wish I had been a part of that, but it's a wonderful program. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about that fellowship and your role, of course, with grant funding at Mellon Foundation at the moment?
So my grant portfolio includes the Mellon Mays Undergraduate Fellowship, as well as 2 graduate and gap year grants that support MMUF alumni, along with an administration grant for the MMUF that's awarded to the American Council of Learned Society. The management of this network, it does command a large portion of my portfolio. However, I've had the privilege of working on several grants to HBCUs and other targeted and prioritized interests of the foundation. And so I've been involved in some grants to, actually it's the first ever grant to Lincoln University's Black Studies Department. No, it's not the first ever. It was the first ever grant to Norfolk State University to support a project to track and catalog the records of enslaved individuals sold from Virginia to New Orleans in the 19th century. And I've been involved in a number of other grants involving other underserved communities and social identities. So that gives you a kind of overview. At this time, I could go the next level of specificity and talk a little bit more about the Mellon Foundation and the MMUF network, if you'd like, or I can hold off and allow my colleagues to talk and then circle back.
Well, if you could tell us a little bit about MMUF in general, just in case some in the audience are not familiar.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So you all know the Mellon Foundation was established as a nonprofit philanthropic organization in June of 1969. Lots of people think it's much older than that. And, you know, the commitment is to the humanities and the arts. In 1988, under their board charter, the foundation made a long-term commitment to help remedy the serious shortage of faculty of color in higher education through the Mellon Minority, as it was called at the time, Mellon Minority Undergraduate Fellowship Program. So the undergraduate arm of the Mellon Mays, established in 1988 with the grant initially to 8 PWI liberal arts colleges, mainly in New England. The MMUF program is now the longest running grant-funded program by the Mellon Foundation. And today, the community of the undergraduate component, referred to as now the Mellon Mays Undergraduate Fellowship Program, includes over 40 continuing individual member schools, which includes Howard University, and 3 consortia, which includes one of the consortia is, historically Black colleges and universities within the membership of the UNCF. So, latest data, we've had over 6,000 students who've been selected as fellows, and more than 1,000 of whom have already earned their PhD, and over close to 200 of whom are now tenured faculty members. So the great majority of those who have completed their PhDs either hold or have held an appointment in the academy. Sometimes it's, a pathway, and people will go into administration or other entities. The fundamental objective of the MMUF is to address over time the problem of the underrepresentation in the academy at the level of colleges and university faculties. And this goal is achieved through both increasing the number of students from underrepresented, marginalized groups who pursue PhDs, and by supporting the pursuit of PhDs by students who may not come from traditional minority groups, but have otherwise demonstrated a commitment to the goals of MMUF. And so I could tell you a little about what they do on the campus level. So during their junior, students are selected typically after they have declared their major, because the grants specify the academic fields that are supported through this grant. And so we need to wait until they've declared their majors, and students will participate during their junior and senior years as MMUF fellows. They will meet regularly with faculty. They are assigned a faculty mentor. They meet with the staff, administrators associated with the program. They forge a cohort on their campus, and they also have opportunities through regional conferences to meet the other fellows associated with their MMUF, with the MMUF program. And so the MMUF program is designed to encourage fellows to enter the PhD and prepare them for professional careers. Everything that is done, all of the activities is surrounding research and development, demystifying the pathways to pursuing a PhD and making it through those milestones. So now, just briefly, the graduate arm of the Mellon Maze, kind of came about because as the program grew, it became clear that the work that was being done in guiding and supporting the fellows when they were on their college campuses was not enough to then help them or sustain them once they got into the graduate program. So a partnership, a grant was established with the Social Science Research Council. And so the Mellon Foundation awards the Social Science Research Council a grant annually for the Graduate Initiatives Program. And it's open only to Mellon Fellows who are pursuing PhDs in Mellon approved fields. And the earliest kind of introduction to that graduate arm takes place during a massive graduate student conference that is fully funded and happens and offers opportunities for students who are years 1 through 3 entering into, or 2 years into, their PhD. And I could go into more details, but I'm not going to. There are multiple elements to this, and there is another arm to the graduate program, which is managed through a grant to the Institute for Citizens and Scholars. And that program focuses on the gap year, the period after earning the PhD, earning the undergraduate, but not yet matriculated in a PhD program, and provides mentoring, guidance, support to MMUF fellows.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Renee. And Bria, who is a PhD, a doctoral student, you recently authored through your time as an intern at NEH, Tell Them We Are Rising on HBCUs and the Digital 2010 through 2021. Please definitely tell us about this report, how it came about, how its development came about, and why you authored it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrea, for your question, and to Jennifer Ferretti for the invitation to be a part of this panel, particularly as a graduate student. But I really do feel like I'm amongst family. Andrea and I attended the same undergraduate institution, Spelman College. Renee, I am a former Mellon Mays undergraduate fellow under the UNCF cohort. And Rico, of course, is at Clark Atlanta, and that's AUC family always. I just need to establish some connections now to Brown. But my time at the NEH was relatively short, only about a semester, but the experience was one that continuously affords me the opportunity to be able to think about how scholars and students at HBCUs fare within the grant funding process. And I do want to preface my remarks by reiterating that I am a former NEH intern and that I do not currently represent the NEH, but I will, of course, speak to my time at the agency and the project that I produced and that was reviewed and published through the NEH. So from the onset of that experience, I was tasked with creating a research project that aligned with my individual interests. And so as an HBCU graduate, I wanted to learn more again about how HBCUs interested in the digital humanities, and that's very loosely defined, fared at the NEH when they applied to various grant programs across the agency, not just in the Office of Digital Humanities. And I do want to underscore that it might be a misconception that a lot of those digital grants are awarded through the Office of ODH, which is the office that I interned with, but actually that's not quite true. In my research, I found that actually the Division of Education Programs and Preservation and Access actually awarded the most digital grants to HBCU applicants. So during my time at the NEH, I joined the HBC Working Group and the Digital Humanities Special Interest Group. So there are working groups at these agencies that are working to think about these particular interests, similar to what we're discussing today. And so I just began to kind of build my project off of the infrastructures that they were already discussing and implementing at the agency. So I embarked on my research, and I found that between 2010 and 2021, HBCU submitted a total of 1,369 applications to the NEH. And I do want to note that that's almost an 11-year period. So that's a relatively small number when we consider that I'm thinking about time over a decade. So 319 of those projects included some sort of digital component. And so I categorized that as a digital project. And of those 319, only 25 of those applications were successfully funded, okay? And so although that's a relatively small number of projects, that is the kind of foundation that I worked with to really consider the larger realm of my project. And just for those who might be interested and want to think about that, you can take a look at my project, and the link has already been dropped in the chat. But out of those 1,369 total applications from HBCUs, a total of 110 of those were successfully funded. So that's a funding ratio of about 8%. Okay, and lastly, I didn't want to just stop at the data collection and assessment in my research process. So I also interviewed project directors from successfully funded digital projects at HBCUs during this time frame. So I spoke with about 7 of those project directors. And these conversations were really key because it offered these digital scholars at HBCUs the chance to share with me and ultimately the NEH about the reception of their NEH-funded digital project on their campuses, the pressing wants and needs for digital development on HBCU campuses, and the redevelopment of the NEH's outreach strategy specific to HBCUs. So I'll stop there because I believe I'll be able to share more about the project's outcomes and recommendations that I made to the NEH and to prospective applicants in responses to some of your later questions. So I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, thank you. So we've heard from you all, and so some of these questions that I'll present now, can be answered by anyone. I'm actually going to, I'm curious, because Bria brought this up about the opportunities or the successful proposals from, and that was particularly NEH, that's not across the board. But I'm curious if any of you are aware of opportunities in digital humanities or digital publications that are possibly not being taken advantage of by HBCUs or institutions producing digital scholarship on African-American subjects. Are you all feeling or seeing that there are some, or even hearing, that from some agencies, like we're not receiving applications from HBCUs, or we'd like to receive more, or, this is going overlooked or something like that? Please feel free to comment.
I'll take a quick go at it just to get us started. I really haven't heard that HBCU faculty or students haven't been able to find these grants, but sometimes we can look at local institutions that provide resources, like your state humanities councils. You can tailor your proposal in a way that includes digital humanities research and or tools. So that's one way to kind of get your feet wet in grant writing. By using state and local resources, writing smaller grant proposals. And that could be $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, but it gives you that avenue to begin working on your grant writing skills and building up to where you can apply for more funding. So I always offer that as a suggestion to students and junior faculty.
Well, with the Mellon Foundation, I guess the challenge is that Mellon does not award grants to individuals. So, one would need to have the institutional backing of their college in order to put forth a proposal that we would review or be a part of an established organization. The Mellon Foundation only kind of reviews or moves to the proposal state proposals that have been invited and really vetted. I think what's important for the participants, the audience to know is that there's a wealth of information on the Mellon Foundation website that includes a portal where someone can post an inquiry. You have an idea, your institution has an idea for a grant and wants to present it as, to see if anyone at the foundation, any of the 4 core programs might be interested in having a discussion with your institution to explore whether there are opportunities there. The other thing for the audience to know is when working with the Mellon Foundation, it really is, it's a delight because we utilize an iterative process. So one does not just submit an application and it gets reviewed or it gets accepted or rejected. We work with those grantees, those potential grantees, through the iterative process of trying to align what the vision of the potential grantee is with the priorities and guidelines of the Mellon Foundation. So one might feel a little intimidated at first about approaching the Mellon Foundation, but do know that there are these, resources online and pathways through which one can present ideas and begin a process.
I'll jump in quickly here too. And Aaliyah has actually already dropped a link to the webpage for resources for small regional and minority serving institutions. So I really encourage the audience members to take a look at that webpage and scour through it. And I'll quickly just run through a few of the grant programs that I would suggest for audience members to consider applying to. So out of the Office of Digital Humanities, the NEH offers the Fellowship Open Book Program. which is designed to make outstanding humanities books available to a wide audience. The NEH also has a partnership with the Mellon Foundation for the Fellowships for Digital Publication. And so that's supporting individual scholars who are pursuing interpretive research projects that require digital expression in digital publication. I would also recommend the Humanities Collections and Reference Resource Program. This is supporting digitization efforts for libraries and museums, including on college campuses. So I think that's particularly pertinent to the audience that we have here today. And then a lot of the digital grants that HBCUs receive, they come through the Humanities Initiative Program. And so that's funding projects that are related to teaching, pedagogy, and curriculum development. And this program has a special track for HBCUs, so only HBCU scholars and practitioners are applying. So of course that increases the chance for funding. And the same for the awards for faculty, which is out of the Division of Research Programs. And that's encouraging faculty members to particularly at HBCUs as well, they have their own track there to be able to apply and get funding for their research. And lastly, the Office of Challenge Programs offers a special funding initiative for building digital infrastructure. And so this program does require organizations to raise matching funds, but applicants should note that HBCUs are eligible for special matching requirements. So again, please check out that webpage. And I want to thank my internship supervisor and former ODH program specialist, Hannah Albert Abrams, who made that webpage as a particular kind of response to my research project. So to really make an effort in showing practitioners and scholars at HBCUs that they're valued at agencies like the NEH.
I can add a few more to this list. The ACLS Digital Justice Grants is an exciting one. And the NHPRC Mellon Planning Grants for collaborative digital editions in African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, and Native American and ethnic studies is also one on our list. Two very publishing specific grant opportunities, not so much project development, but when it's time to seek a publisher, if it is that kind of digital project. Both MIT and Princeton University Press offer grants for diverse voices. So I'll just highlight the Princeton program. You don't have to have signed a contract with Princeton. You don't have to already be a Princeton author, but this is a program that's designed to help prospective authors develop competitive book proposals. And certainly, you know, a digital monograph could also be I think supported through that program, also for the MIT Press. That's something else to look into.
Andrea, can I add just quickly?
Yes.
Also, faculty can get in touch with their institution advancement offices. There are private donors that like to fund research projects. That could be Microsoft, that could be Apple, that could be Google. And many times our institutions already have established relationships with these companies, corporations, donors. So many are looking for projects to fund, and they could be smaller projects or larger projects. But if faculty or students just inquire, then I think they would at least be on the radar of institution advancement. Say, look, I have this project, I need some funding. So that may be a start to have a conversation with institution advancement about funding your specific projects. I just wanted to add that a little bit.
Yes, thank you. We have just a couple more minutes before we open up for Q&A from our audience. So I do want to ask you all, at first I was thinking of this in terms of if you had participated on a panel, a review panel for grant applications, you know, how did that participation influence or impact your future grant applications? But I'd also like to add, even if you have not participated on a review panel, what about any feedback you may have received either from your application or just in general for applications? This kind of goes into a question just seeking advice for people that are starting to write grants, but talk to us about how any feedback has helped you as you pursued other grants or as you reviewed grants and you've picked up on some things that grant writers should key or hone in on and make sure is clear in their applications.
I just really appreciated how committed and courageous and unselfish people can be who are submitting proposals on behalf of very important topics and needs at their institutions. At HBCUs in particular, there's a deeper level of commitment there and urgency that really fuels me. I find myself as a grant reviewer becoming excited and feeling even that much more invested. We often, I think, might think that it is a corporate relationship, but I know at least at the Mellon Foundation, we try to break down those walls and to be very approachable. Often we establish our relationship during the proposal review process, and then we maintain that relationship over the years. It's a multi-year grant. When people are submitting reports, life happened. COVID has taught us that you can lay out your proposal and your plans, but life happens and you got to shift things around. And what I really appreciate is when we have that level of communication between grantee and Mellon staff, we can make those adjustments in a very humane and smart way. I think that is something that I'd like to share with the audience.
I'll chime in a bit. Serving on review panels is where I got my start in grant proposal writing. Serving on review panels helped me to understand structure of grant proposals. It helped me to understand what reviewers and the institutions might be looking for. It helped me understand how to think about my own writing and project and how to deliver it in a way that others would understand it. So it's a good way to not only practice, but be of service to others who have these amazing projects and learn more or less the language and how you can write some successful grant proposals. So it's been a great experience for me. And it's allowed me to encourage others to serve on these review panels like we're doing now. So it's a good start.
I would just pick up, Rico, with something you mentioned, thinking about a digital project or digital publication. We know what kind of reach these projects are having, global reach, especially if it's an open access publication, again, our project. And the faculty authors that I work with get just as excited as I do about the potential there. And so I think, when we're selecting projects to take into our program, we're looking for, understanding that reach, and that it's also going to, that audience is going to include non-specialist readers. And so thinking about projects that can make the greatest impact, really looking for that, the potential there to communicate very important, timely, urgent ideas to a very large audience, again, in the hopes of making the greatest possible impact. And so I think expressing that through the grant writing is very important too. It just makes a very interesting, important project all the more compelling to think about the affordances of presenting it in a digital space and really taking advantage of that as much as possible. I would say tips that I would offer, individuals applying for grants, take advantage of any offers from those program officers to submit a draft and to have a call and just to chat and, just start communicating, start building that relationship. But I never pass up an opportunity to submit a draft proposal because I learned so much from it. I find it to be an invaluable experience, even if there is sometimes a lot of pressure to get it in by the deadline. I think it's really important. And any of the info sessions that are offered, and those are usually recorded, and so they're available on websites. And I think that's important, of course, as well as the reviewer feedback, really hearing what was working well, what wasn't working well, and being ready to pivot, and just be flexible and be willing to iterate. It is a process. It definitely is a process, but it pays off.
Thank you so much. Bria, I don't know if you wanted to answer that. I do want to open up for Q&A for the larger audience, but if you wanted to say anything quickly.
Just a few things quickly, because I think everyone has covered it, but I would just like to underscore that the NEH, most of their division programs have blogs that have plenty of posts about tips for applications. I'm also going to ask Aaliyah to drop my last two links. I brought a ton of links today, but one is to what Allison was just saying, these recordings. I brought two that are relevant for this audience. So the NEH HBCU grant workshop is the first one, and the second one is funding DH at the NEH. So please take a look at those, and hopefully you'll find some good information there.
Thank you. All right, so we'll open it up. We have about 8 more minutes. So quickly, this is from James Neal. He's from IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, of Morehouse graduate, HBCU. Hi, James, in Washington, D.C. His question is, how can HBCUs expand their networks to share more resources among their offices of sponsored research or sponsored programs on the business of grant applications, managing grants, and sustaining the life cycle of grant-funded projects?
So how can the institutions share? Is that the question?
Yes.
So just taking a cue from what we're doing here, we conduct about 6 workshops per year in our Center for Africana Digital Humanities. And that model seems to work well for us in terms of getting information out. So maybe an Office of Sponsored Research and Programs can conduct workshops for their campus community around developing grant proposals, looking out for opportunities. I guess that's a start, having these offices conduct just mini workshops for faculty and students. I think that's a good start. And of course, announcements. But yeah, I think workshops are more hands-on and they have a pretty good impact.
I can share just very briefly that I was working on a grant recently, and we had micro grants that we disseminated to some other institutions, and some of them were HBCUs, but not all. And we did provide some workshops and a contact as well that could help throughout the project. So it was a situation where we would help with managing the projects, helping with reports, etc. So that's another way too, is like if you have some kind of sub grants going on. I know that doesn't always work, but another question we have is, I'd like to hear from Dr. Chapman about what kinds of successes and struggles the faculty he trains are having. Are they managing to get institutional support for their DH work? Thank you. That's from Carol Mandel.
Oh, thank you. Let's see. So more or less, it's been successful. Faculty come in kind of hesitant with having, the term digital humanities can be a bit misleading because it's so broad. And some think you have to be a coder, you have to know all this software and language around AI and whatnot, but that's not necessarily the case. So we have to get over that hump of hesitancy first. And myself, I didn't come in as a coder. I'm not, expert in any kind of computational software, but I came in more so as a program coordinator and organizing these workshops and DH opportunities. And I learned that from my first experience with the City University of New York Digital Humanities Research Institute. And we had a series of workshops around computational tools, but I was hesitant myself because I was not a coder. So the director at the time, she was like, you don't have to be an expert in any computational tools, just have to know who to call when you need help. And what solidified it is during the entire workshop series, it was a summer institute, there were graduate students who were conducting these workshops. They were the experts, and it was more or less faculty who were learning from graduate students. And that's definitely a plus, Bria. And I've been learning from you this whole session. So that's one thing that I guess faculty have, that's one, not necessarily a dilemma, but some faculty come in with that hesitancy. The success side of it is after that first intro, they're ready to go. They're ready to research how they can incorporate computational tools and thinking into their research. We're in year 2, and none have expressed that they've submitted a proposal just yet for a digital humanities project, but many have come back, and we do evaluations. Many have stated that they've learned so much that they're confident in applying for grants that have a DH emphasis. So I think we're making an impact in that way, in taking the burden off faculty to know that they don't necessarily have to be computer geniuses to be in DH. So that's been good for us.
Great, thank you. And I want to, and please, you can speak on any of these questions. I didn't mean to cut you off, Allison. But I want to just kind of address the last question that we have, and you all can answer very quickly. We have just 2 minutes, so we'll just speedily answer. The question is from Jeremy Otley: what are your favorite digital humanities success stories? But I'd like to also open that up to favorite digital publication or favorite just grant success stories as we wrap this panel up. And so Allison, why don't you go ahead, since I was cutting you off.
Oh, that's so hard to answer. I was gonna say, I'll try to find a bridge between the last question and this one. We made fully available the recordings of the faculty presentations from the NEH Institute on the website, and the link is earlier in the chat. So that's open to everyone beyond that cohort of 15 people. So anyone who is looking for that extra tutorial, we've made that available. Well, I'm, you know what, I'm gonna say it's the 15 forthcoming digital publications in development by the NEH cohort. They're amazing, outstanding projects, and I look forward to seeing all 15 of those over the next few years as open access digital publications. So I just want to cheer for the cohort.
Thank you. Bria, Renee?
Well, I'm relatively new to this area of scholarship, and so everything has been exciting. I can't say that there's one that well, of course there is one that stands out, and that's the Norfolk State University Soul Down River, because I worked so closely with them, and they had never been awarded a grant from the Mellon Foundation. And so I love being a trailblazer. And so we had a really good time and established some meaningful relationships. And periodically I take a peek. They have not reported out and their interim report. Periodically I take a look at their links to see what new information they have and what level of advancements they've made. And they're really doing just fine work. So that would stand out for me.
Thank you. Bria and then Rico, and we'll wrap.
Yeah, I would have to say the Black Book Interactive Project, which is housed at the University of Kansas. This is a digital repository of a huge corpus of literary texts that have been digitized. As a literary scholar, that's really exciting for me, and I'm actually really proud to be a part of their Intro to Digital Humanities cohort for this year to learn more about the field. And the project has been funded by both NEH and Mellon previously.
Thanks. Our Mellon project, I've been just excited to be able to fund graduate students, give them stipends to participate, and they have taken the ball and ran with it. So much so that now we have a team of graduate students developing a concentration in digital humanities for graduate students. So that's been a success.
All right. Well, I want to thank this awesome panel. Really appreciate you all and your time and wonderful answers and contributions. And I don't think anybody that's attending has an excuse for not looking at these opportunities that you all have shared. There's lots out there. So, and we can be in touch with you all as well. And I want to thank, of course, all of our attendees for joining us today. Please continue the conversation in the lobby as well. This is a very active lobby, which I love. And we'll be back tomorrow for more of this conference. I think we have a wrap-up session right directly after this. Like I said, network in the lobby and then join us tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you all.
Bye.